Welcome to Nomad Capitalist Live with Andrew Henderson. Andrew is a self-made serial entrepreneur who's taken his business success from the United States and converted it into a location-independent global empire. After years of paying way too much in taxes and feeling less and less free, Andrew learned the hard way that there's a way to keep your freedom and keep more of your hard-earned money. Each week, Andrew shares tips and insights gleaned from his world travels on how you can find more freedom, grow and protect your assets, and live a radical life on your own terms. And now, here's your host, perpetual traveler, international entrepreneur, and citizen of the world, Andrew Henderson.
It is Nomad Capitalist Live. Andrew Henderson with you. This is the show where we talk about the legal strategies to grow your wealth, protect your wealth, live where you please, and live the life of your dreams. Thank you for being with us as always. Big guest today, and I want to talk about what this gentleman is doing. Vit Jedlicka, the founder of the new country of Libreland, is going to be with us talking about what's going on there, the latest details from on the ground in Libreland, and things he's doing to increase recognition of his country all around the world. Very exciting to welcome him on the show later today. And this is something that occasionally we get asked about. You know, I have very strong political views, as do, I'm sure, you if you're listening to this show. One of the things I've realized over a number of years doing this, a number of years being the face of Nomad Capitalist, the chief Nomad Capitalist, I guess, is that success when it comes to planting flags, success when it comes to doing business offshore, success when it comes to finding the happiness that you want, and that maybe the happiness you couldn't find where you are from. That going where you're treated best means putting yourself first. And I'm not an activist. You won't see me out, protesting at a tax rally. You won't see me as a part to a lawsuit suing the U.S. government over FATCA. You won't see me as doing a number of things of that nature, precisely because I believe go where you're treated best is all about going where you are treated best. And the concept that self-interest in the long run creates great things. Just as my interest in investing money and planting my flags led me to hopefully help many other people do the same. So I respect a lot what Vit Jedlicka is doing, and I'm excited to talk to him. Not so many people ask me these days, what I think about Libreland. Not so many people ask me what I think about Bitcoin anymore. We were one of the first conferences back in 2014 that was one of the first mainstream conferences of our kind that was talking about Bitcoin with Stephanie Murphy, who is one of the geniuses in this area, one of the 10 big people with Bitcoin. We were one of the first people to talk about Libreland, and gosh, it seems like it's been years ago, but it's barely been a year and a half since the Libreland thing has really been coming about. And I respect what they're doing at Libreland a lot, and I'm watching very eagerly to see. I've been reading a lot of the stuff coming out of Libreland, and they're talking about setting up banks and doing things in cryptocurrency and forming companies and citizenships and things like that. And the natural question is, how do we use this stuff to plant our flags with Libreland? And that's a question I don't entirely know the answer to. Every week we answer one of your questions here on the show, and thousands and tens of thousands of people get their questions answered every week by reading stuff on our website. But I don't know the answer to how do you plant flags in Libreland. And here's why. As much as you and I don't like the system that's out there, as much as you and I would like a different system politically, economically, etc., the system that's out there is the system that exists. And we have to find ways that are legal and practical and also beneficial to us to protect ourselves and to find the freedom that we want. When I see people on other parts of the internet talking about how to hide money, how to find non-FATCA compliant banks, how to do things that are shady or downright illegal, I shake my head and I think that this is not freedom. Freedom is knowing that you'll always be free. Yes, we have to live in the moment and enjoy now and grow and protect our wealth based on what we know today, but doing something that could end up in a total lack of freedom is not freedom. And to go out there and violate the law and try and do things in a shady way is not the answer. I'm not saying anything in Libreland is shady. I believe the exact opposite. I believe that Libreland is trying to set a new standard for transparency in all of their dealings. But the challenge in Libreland that I see, and I'm going to ask Vít about this later, the challenge I see and that I hope that he figures out, and that I know he's working hard to figure out, is how Libreland is going to be accepted by the rest of the world. Someone who works for me has a good friend who is Kosovar. They've got a Kosovo passport. And even though they've been living in Germany for some time, when they wanted to go and live in another part of the EU, they had to go back to Kosovo and figure out a complicated passport situation because Kosovo has limited international recognition. Not every country in the world recognizes Kosovo. Some countries believe it's still part of Serbia. If you ask Serbians, the entire former Yugoslavia is still part of Serbia. And that's a dicey political situation, and I don't really want to get in the middle of it. But if you want to go and set up a Kosovo company or get a Kosovo residency that leads to a passport or do whatever else, then you have to certainly understand that you're getting yourself into a situation where there may be some time in the future where that country is not recognized by someone you want to do business with. Opening a bank account in Kosovo is very easy. Kosovo is kind of the Wild West of the Balkans. And I like Kosovo, and they're trying to make things very easy, much easier than some of their neighbors. But they have a challenge in Kosovo that involves recognition. There are other countries where the same situation exists. And the question you have to ask yourself is, am I doing what's right for me? I'm doing some things right now that are kind of fun, right? I'm buying cattle land. I'm looking at purchasing some other assets, beach homes, and just all kinds of fun stuff that I think, done the right way, will hold value and possibly appreciate a bit, but that's just kind of fun investments. I'm at that point where I want to do things that are fun. I want to buy fun assets. And we'll be talking about that as it develops. But, for me, you have to be very careful. You don't want to take a fun approach to planting flags. And I think that most of us who have been doing this for a while are guilty of planting a fun flag every once in a while, and it's gotten us in trouble. For me, I've always loved Hong Kong since the first time I went there, and I wanted to have flags planted in Hong Kong, and we do. Banking in Hong Kong, as of late, has become absolutely downright impossible for many companies. I just got an email this morning from a friend of mine in Belgium who said, Andrew, holy crap, I got a guy, please help me. I got a guy who is trying to get a bank account in Hong Kong. It's like pulling teeth. I said, yeah, you're right. You got to go somewhere else. The banking in Hong Kong flag has sailed. And for guys like me who love Hong Kong, love going to Hong Kong, and want to feel like, hey, this is a great place, it's a safe place, let me put my money here. If you don't know what you're doing and you're doing that just because it's kind of fun and it makes you feel good to have a flag in Hong Kong because it seems like a cool place, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. I've talked about on this show how I know more than a dozen people who have had accounts frozen, closed, they've gotten into tax trouble, they've had all kinds of problems dealing with Hong Kong banks that are total bozos. Hong Kong is becoming a horrible place to bank. It pains me to say it, but it's true. If you've got a Hong Kong bank account and you're running a company in particular, I would get out. I would get out of there. I'd have a plan B. I absolutely would. And there are all kinds of fun flags you can plant around the world. Sometimes the fun flag is you're just kind of following the herd because you read everyone on a blog or everyone on a forum or everyone in some kind of mastermind saying, I got my account in Hong Kong, and you follow, and then everyone gets into trouble. I look at Libreland with the question as, what kind of recognition is Libreland going to have? In the same way that I look at companies in the Caribbean. For years, people call down to some lawyer in Nevis. And as I always say, when you call a lawyer in Nevis, you can understand what your plan and what your strategy is going to be. You can bet your, tokus that the strategy is going to be Nevis, right? No Nevis lawyer is going to say, you know what, you need a BVI company. It's just not going to happen. And the problem is Nevis lawyers are lawyers in Nevis. They're not lawyers in the UK. They're not lawyers in the US. They're not lawyers in Australia. They don't know the tax law anywhere else. And why should they? I mean, call a US tax lawyer and see if they know the tax law in Australia. I mean, why would they? That's not their job. A lot of tax lawyers in the United States barely know the US tax law when it comes to expat work. I've told you that my US accountant, one of the most expensive in the country, didn't even know if I qualified for the foreign earned income exemption when I first started qualifying for it years ago. They didn't know, and they're in the U.S. So imagine, why would a Nevis lawyer know what U.S. tax law is? And this is the problem people get themselves into. They go down instead of Nevis companies as U.S. persons or persons from some other high-tax country, and then the government in their home country says, oh, you never reported this company. Oh, you never paid tax. Oh, you never did this. And the person says, oh, but Nevis is tax-free. To which the IRS or your local tax agency will say, yes, but our country's not, and you're a citizen of this country. And so the challenge when a lot of people go to set up offshore companies without any help is they just say, oh, it's tax-free here, that must be tax-free everywhere. Whereas if you're an American, for example, a U.S. person, you're going to have certain requirements with that company that the Nevis lawyer cannot advise you on. Their job is just to set up a company and tell you about Nevis. And in the same way, my concern is with Libreland, where, you can set up a Libreland company, great. Whether Libreland is even a recognized state may or may not be an issue, but the issue goes to be when you go and tell the United States, hey, I've been doing business through my Libreland company, and they say, we don't really count it as a company, and so now we're going to tax you at 45%. I approve of what Vít is doing. I think Vít has stood the test of time and has worked harder than pretty much anyone else in this kind of situation. He's trying to do things the right way. And whether or not I believe that the right way is actually a moral or a just way, it is the way that's going to make his country potentially the most successful one of its kind. He's trying to form a real country with libertarian principles. And you and I can sit around and complain about how having any kind of government may be a problem, but that's what's needed to survive, because otherwise no one's going to take him seriously. And so my concern right now is that not enough places do take him seriously, that if you go and put your bank account there, who knows what that is classified as? Do you have to fill out an FBAR form to report your Libreland bank account? How do you report your Libreland company? If you own real estate, I'm not so concerned about that because that's often not reportable in your home country, but is there real estate for sale? And if so, will Serbia or Croatia come and whack somebody, or will some international court come in? There's a lot of uncertainty. And so if you have money to invest and you want to take some chances on an investment level, I absolutely want to figure out ways with Vít that we can do that as a group. Because for me, it's a kind of fun asset class, fun investment. I want to support what he's doing. I like the concept, but I also understand that you have to follow the laws where you're from and where you live. I'm not saying I agree with it, and that's why we talk about the strategies we do, second passports, so that someday you may just want to back away from the place that you're from. But, if you want to be a U.S. citizen and then say, I'm not going to follow any U.S. laws, come and get me, bad idea. Get a second passport and give up the U.S. one. I'm not going to be an activist and sit here and tell you to break the law because that's the moral thing to do. You going to jail is not a moral thing to do. You have to put yourself first, and that includes keeping free. And so that is what I want to talk to Vít about coming up next, is how is Libreland working in a place where, in a world where other countries are really putting the screws to places like Libreland. Countries are putting the screws to Hong Kong. And while Hong Kong is pretty well insulated, they've got China behind them. I mean, Hong Kong banks are becoming more difficult, partially because horrible banks like HSBC have made big mistakes and are paying the price in all of their countries all around the world. But the other banks, they don't want the hassles of dealing with foreigners because they don't have to. And so as a result, all of the pressure from the outside world has made Hong Kong a more difficult place to bank. And it's unfortunate. But unfortunate does not mean it's not true. And we have to accept the reality. I'm excited about Libreland, and I want to find ways, so stay tuned. I want to try and find ways to work with Vít and to see what we can do to help in a way that is legal and keeps all of our noses clean. I like what he's doing, and I hope it's successful. He and I think, from what I've read, don't agree on every aspect of his plan. But I think having those kind of countries is always more important. But my challenge is that those kind of countries are becoming more and more difficult. And so I think that's why Vít, I think he understands that, and that's why he's trying to curry favor and gain diplomatic recognition with other countries, because he understands that you can't just go out there and be full of bombast and throw your weight around and just say we're not going to follow anyone else's laws, because the rest of the world won't deal with you, and a 7-kilometer country won't be able to deal with that. So I'm excited to talk to Vít coming up next. Always happy to, by the way, to take your emails and your thoughts on this subject. Andrew@nomadcapitalist.com. If you would like to chime in, and we may read some of those on the air coming up in future weeks. Andrew Henderson with you, the show where we talk about the legal offshore strategies that grow your freedom, personal freedom, financial freedom, grow your wealth, grow your opportunities, do it all. And we do it legally so that you maintain that freedom for the rest of your life. None of us look good in orange. Andrew Henderson, nomadcapitalist.com. Stick with me. Vit Jedlicka from Libreland next.
Singapore Precious Metals Exchange offers safe, secure transport of precious metals directly into bonded and insured vaults. Visit sgpmx.com or call Scottsdale Mint at 888-745-2279, extension 3.
It is Nomad Capitalist Live. Andrew Henderson with you, nomadcapitalist.com. And we've got a very special guest whom many of our listeners may know. We've been following this situation for almost 2 years now. It's been very interesting what's happening on the Danube River, the potential birth of a brand new country, a free market-oriented, pro-immigration, pro-business, pro-everything, pro-nomad capitalist country. And Vít Jedlicka is the president of Libreland. He's been spearheading this effort to start a new country for almost 2 years now. Mr. President, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be on the show, and let me correct you very briefly. It is 1 year, and we actually started on 13th of April, 2015. And lots of people actually think that it must be at least 10 years because they see all these articles and all this activity. So you're not the only one who thinks that we are at least 2 years.
Yeah, we've got a lot of mutual friends who have been telling me that this is kind of coming here. I remember being in very nearby in Bosnia before this all kind of unfolded, and seeing what's happening. Let me ask you, for those who aren't familiar with Libreland, tell us about where this all started. You were in the Czech Republic and frustrated. Why try and start your own country?
Well, when you see the politics in most of the countries around the world, and you try to do something about it, you get kind of skeptical after 5 years, and you don't see too much of a result. I started a libertarian country some 7 years ago in Prague, in Czech Republic, and it was kind of successful. Now we have one member of European Parliament. But when you realize that even if you had majority in European Parliament, you couldn't change anything because it's not the institution that works in that way. And when you see people that are getting the most donations from the state and from European Union actually taking over the country from the finance ministry, so you realize that it might be just much more easier to start a new country than to change anything in the already set up regimes. And there is always like 1% out of 1% of the population that is really serious about liberty. And if some of the energy from these people is concentrated to a small spot on the planet, it can be very easy to actually start a new country there. And this is what is happening with Libreland. There is a great support, which is completely international, for the new country, which we are utilizing. I think we are utilizing it maybe just from 1% by now. But I can tell you there are some very good partners even from the establishment that love this, what we are doing, and they want to support it. So this is why I'm very optimistic about the future of liberty and Libreland. And the great thing about Libreland is that it will not fight with anybody. It's not having any problem with anybody. It's just going to be a good example for the other countries. And that's the main idea. We are bringing the positive message.
So this is a 7 square kilometer island. It's in the Danube River. It's between Serbia and Croatia. We'll talk about some of that in a moment. what's always interesting to me is looking at small countries, and this obviously will be about as small as they come next to Monaco and the Vatican, but you look at Singapore and countries like that, as you say, they're not out fighting people. They're just out finding ways to offer value to the rest of the world, finding ways to attract capital, finding ways to attract talent and to grow their country. But I look at kind of the opposite side of that. I look at the United States, and we talked about the same thing that you're mentioning here, where people are going to go and vote later this year, and they're going to vote for Trump, or they're going to vote for Clinton or whatever, and they're going to think this is going to be the guy, the same as 4 years ago, 8 years ago, this will be the guy to change it. And I've said it's not going to work. What do you say to people who listen to this show and maybe haven't made a move overseas yet, haven't changed their lifestyle to the things that you and I are doing yet, because they think, well, let's just give this one more shot?
Well, it's already working. That's the great thing about Libreland, right? Because whenever you start act like a country, you basically are a country. If you are able to decently act like a country, then there is no problem. And this is why we will start registering companies. This is why we can register ships, because there is already enough good knowledge in the world that we can already start doing these things. And that's the only important aspect about the country. And the more we are into this, the more we realize this. And we got some issues with Croatia regarding our territory. They are very protective. They sometimes even guard the borders that we have with Serbia. But it's not important at this stage, because we can still stay in the Liberland territory, but on the boats right now. So we don't have a problem with that. And we can act as a country for the outside of the world. So we've got some 70 diplomatic offices now that are up and running. I'm just in Belgium, starting our office here. And we can do all these things that the other country is doing without having any kind of recognition, without having let's say, proper access to the territory yet. But we simply do have enough goodwill from people around the world that want to help it. And we simply do have enough good PR that we can start acting and working as a country all the way.
One of the concerns I think people have to that point is that, look at what the United States has done to banks around the world. Look at what countries, the big countries, have done to really put pressure on small countries and make them bend to their will. Can you be successful without having some of the relationships with those big countries where money flows through? I know that certainly you want to change things and do more Bitcoin-oriented stuff and really change the way a country's operated. But do you think that you can be successful and speak to the critics who say, or the skeptics who say, this is going to be tougher with the way you're trying to do things?
Well, first of all, like any kind of attention that is brought to Liberland by any kind of larger power, such as the United States, is, of course, very welcome. And if Czech Foreign Ministry already mentioned Liberland 3 times on their website, we always share it. We always appreciate it. If Serbian Foreign Ministry mentions Liberland, no matter in what way, it's always appreciated, because foreign ministries usually don't deal with individuals. They are only tackling the country. So it doesn't matter if the approach is positive or negative. It always elevates our status. And the other thing is that there is so much technological stuff going on. The central banks are becoming obsolete with cryptocurrencies. This is a trend which cannot be stopped. Even the powers that be realize this fact. And we are just kind of a small manifestation of these things. And we would like to integrate with the old world in the most friendly, most fashionable way.
The kind of people who come to you, and we're talking to Vit Jedlicka, the president of Libreland. He's starting a brand new country, 7 kilometers, and I really like what you're doing. The concern for people, and let me speak as someone who works with a lot of U.S. citizens. They're going to say, I'm going to set up my Libreland company and everything's going to be great, and then the U.S. government's going to say, we don't recognize that, and they're going to cause me some real problems. What are you doing to work towards more relationships and make things more palatable to the rest of the world? Or is that the goal at all?
First of all, I was twice in the United States. We visited a number of congressmen and senators. We've got full support of Gary Johnson, who said recognizing Liberland will be one of his first actions when he becomes president. And he is the 3rd most likely person to be a president at this stage, which is very helpful. So I'm working very hard to to get 11 consulates up and running in the United States, to have a very strong central office, which will be in good contact with Congress and Senate, to push all these ideas through. And honestly, we are not making anything new. Like, people can already go to different tax havens. We would like to be quite transparent in a sense. We would like to be an open and friendly to all other countries. So we don't have a problem. We are not a new problem. We are simply, we would like to the others to let us live. And this is our motto, to live and let live.
And so to the people on the other side of the coin, I know there are some people who say, maybe getting into bed with the United States and developing relationships with them, they'd say, why? Just do your own thing and be totally independent and leave those anachronistic countries on their own and just don't even deal with them. I think you have a more pragmatic approach than that, but explain to me why you decided to go and set up these consulates and establish these relationships around the world.
Because we've got so many people who applied for citizenship. There are more than 11,000 people from United States, and we have to take care of our citizens abroad. We have to support them. We have to connect them together to build a stronger community. And of course, United States is important. We would like to be good friends with the US government, basically with everybody. So it's in line with our strategy.
So the strategy is being friends with everyone and not saying, well, we don't like the US or we don't like Western Europe because they're too socialist or they're too communist or they're too out of line for our taste. You're saying, let's get along with everyone, agree, disagree. Yeah. We're just here for peace and to be on our own thing. Yeah, this is the thing.
Like, there is lots of pressure exerted on us not to start dealing with the unrecognized countries and unrecognized territories. We are very open to anybody. Of course, some of these things might pose a little bit of problem, but there is not a single entity that we wouldn't talk to. And always when we get to talk to these governments, I think we have a good influence over their own decisions. And we are good actually in showing the world that the stuff can be done differently. For example, somebody says that we are some kind of shady entity. Our accounts are completely transparent. Our income is transparent. And try to show me other country that would have same approach, that whenever they pay for something, it's shown directly on the website, or whenever somebody sends them money, it would be shown directly on the website as well. So that's the funny thing about Libreland, right? We want to be open, we want to be transparent, we are out there to create the freest country in the world, and we are getting lots of support for that. And I think that's great about it.
You had so many people, hundreds of thousands, apply for citizenship, and I believe you said from every country on earth, people applied for citizenship. What's happening with that right now? Are you going through and picking who you want, or you said all of our citizens in the U.S.? I mean, can anyone become a citizen? How does that working right now?
Well, we established a merit system, which means anybody who helps Liberland will get merits for it. And it doesn't matter if it's financially, which is straight away, you send some money to Liberland, you get merits. And or if it's physically on the spot, you spend a summer working in Libreland, then of course brings merits as well. We need now settlers and people who will be directly on spot and settling Libreland. And that will also bring a lot of merits. And then we are into developing a new system, a new project management, which will help us to get thousands and thousands of people engaged, because the already existing systems of management are not good enough. There is not a single software that we could use to actually manage such a large group people of supporters that want to help. So we need more kind of genetic-based, reputation-based system where everybody can act as a leader and everybody can propose good ideas. And if they get enough support from the community, they can execute it. They can even get some central funds for it. But the idea is really that we will crowdfund for everything. The idea is really that we'll have voluntary taxation, that we are completely separating state and economy, and that's very, very, very important aspect about Liberland. And whenever somebody comes with a good idea, they basically set up a project, which is a small crowdfunding campaign, and that will be executed whenever there is enough money crowdfunded for it.
Vit Jedlicka from Libreland. I know you've just got a few more moments left. Let me ask you on the passport part. Someone wants to be a resident, someone wants to be a citizen. What kind of financial investment are you looking for from people who want to be part of Libreland?
Well, if they don't want to help, they would just like to contribute financially. We are looking for an investment of around 10,000 euro. That basically brings you into the inner circle of the people that are eligible for citizenship right away. But you can also work for it, and I think the same amount of merits will be done if you work for Liberland a year or two, just 2 hours a day. That will also deliver you the same amount of merits, because we need a lot of workforce, either with programming, on spot, people doing diplomacy, people, promoting Libreland. We need graphic designers. So we are basically setting up fully functional organizations worldwide. And that's why I told you we've got 70 representative offices, and we need even more. We would like to have a representative office in every country in the world. So again, we've got now this interesting idea that we will settle Liberland with houseboats, and this is something that I was considering would be also a way how to get the citizenship fast, if there will be a people actually investing into houseboats and moving to Liberland on a nice houseboat and enjoying a summer there, because we need to show the presence of our nation. And that is one of the projects that I can tell you is the one which is directly connected with the citizenship.
I know one of the things that I found doing a lot of traveling in Europe and figuring out which countries have it and which don't. I like Serbia for certain reasons. Croatia seems like they have pushed away everyone who's in business, everyone who wants to immigrate, and you guys were having problems where they were heckling you, or they were imprisoning you for going and accessing this land that they never wanted. They said it's not our land, but yet they were imprisoning you. What's the status with that right now?
Well, first of all, we are very happy that the Croatia courts recognize that what Croatia police is illegal. We had 5 victories in the row with Croatian courts very recently, so that's good. And we kind of appreciate Croatia's presence at this stage, because we were kind of in a childhood stage of the country, but we are growing stronger and stronger, and we will actually become fully, let's say, eligible to take care of our territory very soon. But again, we don't want to hurry that too much. We have a plan to settle Liberland with boats for now. And, it's just a small issue that needs to be overcome. And I can tell you there is a new government in place in Croatia, which is much more liberty-friendly than the previous one. And this gives me a lot of hope.
Yeah, just recently it's become a bit better. I wonder sometimes, like in Argentina, if these changes are short-lived or if they will last. Only time will tell. Lastly, when we come on this show, the idea